Hey team, I hope you're all well. Gary here from Gary Rankin Coaching, and today I want to give you some tips and tools on overcoming negative self-talk. So please make sure you've got your pad and pen at the ready, and let's get straight into it. Negative self-talk is one of these pesky little things that for so many people is such a regular part of their daily lives that they think this is just how it is. It's the way it's meant to be, and it's the way it always will be. And I'm here to tell you today that that is absolutely not the case. This is something that you can overcome. This is something that you can completely transform. And I promise you, you can get yourself to a much more positive, energizing and empowering place. And I don't share this with you just because I've learned some things about it or I've managed to help clients with it. Yes, I've done both of those things. But I also share this with you from my own personal experience. Because when I was 24 years old, my negative self-talk drove me to anxiety, depression and suicidal thoughts. And by using some of the skills and tools that I'm going to share with you today, I was able to completely overcome it, and I promise you, so can you. Now, I think it's important to quickly discuss how negative self-talk can show up and negatively impact us. Because although for those of us who experience negative self-talk, we know we have this negative nagging voice in our head, how it actually shows up and negatively impacts each of us can be different. Firstly, negative self-talk can stop us from believing in and feeling good about ourselves, which in turn means that we may not set any goals for ourselves at all in the first place. Or if we do have goals and things that we would love to be, do, have and achieve in life, we don't take action on them. Next, if we do have goals and we are taking action on them, that negative self-talk can pop up in the process, making it difficult for us to focus and concentrate, limiting the quality and the quantity of the action that we take, and thus negatively impacting the results that we get. Next, if we do have goals, we are taking action, and we are creating positive results, that negative self-talk can rob us of those positive results by not allowing us to see the positive in the results, focusing on the negative and saying to us, oh, but you could have done better, oh, but you should have done more, and robbing us of any feelings of success, achievement, confidence, self-esteem, motivation, momentum, and any of the other positive things that could have come from those results. Next, by having this negative narrative consistently speaking to us day in, day out, over time, this can begin to chip away at our confidence. It can begin to chip away at our self-esteem, and if left unchecked, it can begin to create things like anxiety and depression. And over time, leaving it unchecked can really wreak havoc on our mental health and our quality of life. Last, but by no means least, the narrative that we have in our head, the story that we're telling ourselves about ourselves and about the current situation or experience that we're in life right here and now, largely determines how we feel. And so if we're entering a potentially negative situation, a stressful situation, or a situation that could make us nervous, if that negative self-talk pops up, it can make that situation seem and feel so much worse than it actually is. And when that negative self-talk is making it seem and feel so much worse than it actually is, that just becomes our reality, and it feels as bad as we think it is. Now, that's how negative self-talk can show up and affect us. Just have a quick think. Which of these, if any, do you recognise? I know I certainly recognise a few from back in the day. There's a few things that I think it's quickly important to learn about how negative self-talk can work, so that we can then use these skills and tools more intentionally to help us to overcome it. First and foremost, negative self-talk is purely just thinking. It's just thoughts. And as we've touched on before, we are not the thoughts that we think. We think thoughts all day long, we have thoughts, we experience thoughts, but we are not the thoughts that we think. And we're going to use this concept with one of our skills very soon. Next is that in order for this negative self-talk to have a soapbox or have legs to stand on to speak to us negatively, there could potentially be some limiting beliefs behind it that are giving it the power to stand up and speak. And so I just want to signpost you to our training on overcoming limiting beliefs, because by beginning to explore what you believe about yourself and what you believe about the world, if we can discover and highlight some of these limiting beliefs and change them, We may knock away that soapbox and give that negative self-talk no legs to stand on. And so go and check out the training on overcoming limiting beliefs and think to yourself, what is it I believe about myself? What is it I believe about the world? Why is this voice in my head being nasty to me? Why is there so much negativity in my head? And what you may find is you'll get an answer along the lines of because I am, and then followed by a statement, or because the world is, or because this thing is related to whatever situation the negative self-talk pops up around. And by changing that limiting belief, we can end up completely negating the negative self-talk altogether. Last but by no means least is that our brains like to work in patterns. They like to work in habits to conserve mental energy. And we often think of habits as behaviours and routines that we physically enact in the world, but our thinking also happens in patterns and habits too. And so by using the skills and tools that we're going to use today, we can begin breaking and interrupting those patterns. And when we do that consistently over time, our brain goes, wait a minute, I created this pattern of thinking to conserve mental energy, and every time I do it, Gary keeps interrupting it. Hold on a minute here. Maybe he wants me to do something different instead. So, now on to the skills and tools. First and foremost, going on the concept that we are not the thoughts that we think, I want you to give your negative self-talk a name. And I want you to give it a name that makes it seem ridiculous. So, for example, I used to call my negative self-talk Steve, because to me, Steve just seems like a bloke I would bump into, or a bloke I would meet down the pub, not this dark, ominous voice talking to me in my head. So pick a name for your negative self-talk that makes it seem slightly silly. Now, just a quick tip, do not name your negative self-talk after someone that you know and don't like, because we're just going to create negative associations we don't need. So, got a name in mind? Fantastic. Step 2 is to begin actively disassociating and disidentifying from that negative self-talk. So going on the concept that we're not the thoughts that we think. Anytime your negative self-talk pipes up, I want you to consciously and actively see that voice as something separate from yourself. I want you to envision it, to listen to it, to observe it as if it is someone else talking, and that someone else is the name that you've given it. And by disidentifying from these thoughts, we take away the power that they have over us, sometimes even completely diminishing it. And so now our first 2 skills have helped us to disidentify from this voice. We want to now begin breaking the pattern and interrupting it. And the first way that we can do this are with 2 clever words, but and yet. When we use the word but, it negates anything that came before it. If you have a think about it, if I was to say to you, hey, I really like your shoes, but, you know what I'm going to say after the but is almost a complete contradiction to what I said before it. And so, if that negative voice pops up and says something negative or disempowering, when we put but on the end and add something positive, it negates the negative, and the positive is what our brain focuses on instead. And so if that voice pops up and goes, oh, I'm not very good at that, then we can go, I'm not very good at that, but I'm doing my best and I'm consistently improving. That way we're focused on the positive. We can also use the word yet, because yet implies there's more to come. So that voice might pop up and go, oh, I'm not good enough at that. And we could go, I'm not good enough at that yet, implying that we are going to get there. Next, we're going to have a bit of fun with it. The reason that that voice holds power over us is because we are associated to it. So as well as practicing disassociating from it, we want to change the voice slightly, which will also help change the association. And the way that we do that is simply by changing the tone in which that voice speaks to us in, because that is something we have power of and control over. And so if that voice speaks up and goes, I'm not good enough, or you're crap at that, we can change the tone of the voice so it sounds like, I'm not good enough, you're crap at that. Because when we say it in a silly voice, it just seems ridiculous. It's funny. It doesn't have the same power over us. So give that a quick go just now. Think of something that your negative self-talk would normally say to you that would upset you or get the better of you or make you feel a certain way. And I want you to try saying it in a funny voice and see what that changes about it now. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? That right there, when we change the tone of voice, it stops the power it's going to have over us and it helps us to interrupt the pattern, similar to the button yet. And so now that we've started messing with the pattern a wee bit, now what we want to do is to change it. And all we can do there is, once we've interrupted the voice, or if we've let it say what it wants to say in a squeaky voice, then we just want to say something nice to ourselves instead, something positive, something empowering. And I invite you to speak to yourself like you would speak to a friend. Now, you've probably heard that many times before, but when we actually put it into practice, it's hugely powerful. So let's just say that I'm doing something. Let's say I'm working out and I'm not doing as well as I would want it to do. The negative self-talk would pipe up and go, oh my God, see, you're so crap at this. You're just not good enough and you should give up on your goals. Well, I'm going to change the tone of voice, I'm going to interrupt it, and then I'm going to think, what would I say to a friend in this situation? Well, I may say to a friend, hey, Gary, it's okay. You've not got as much energy today as you would like to have had, and that's okay. Let's just slow things down, focus on form, get through the rest of this workout safely, enjoyably. We can get some more steps in later, and tomorrow we can come back and lift again after a good night's sleep with more energy. Massive difference between the two conversations, right? Well, if we consistently interrupt that pattern, consistently mess with it and change its tone of voice, and consistently reframe what it says into something positive, eventually our brain's going to get fed up trying to run that pattern that we keep interrupting, and it's going to allow us to automatically replace it with positive self-talk instead. Last but by no means least, if we're in a situation that is scary, stressful, makes us nervous or is unpleasant, if that negative self-talk pops up, we want to immediately interrupt it and start giving ourselves a positive narrative. And so if we're in a situation like, let's say I'm going to go and deliver a speech in public and my brain's going, oh no, what if I forget my words? What if I get found out? What if people don't like it? All that stuff's just going to put me into a negative downward spiral. So instead, what I can do is interrupt that voice and go, hey, it's okay. I've got this. I know my stuff. I've practiced it. And if I make a mistake, that's okay. We're humans. We all make mistakes. We all fail at times. And you know what? I'm going to deliver the best speech ever, and I'm going to have so much fun. By changing the narrative in our head to a positive narrative, it reduces the effect that stress can have over us. Yes, we'll still feel stressed because we're in a stressful situation, but it will limit the effect that that stress can have over us, stopping us from getting stressed out and or overwhelmed. And so, using these skills and tools, we can disidentify from that negative voice in our head. We can begin scrambling and interrupting the pattern, and then we can begin replacing what it says with something positive. And by doing this consistently, day in, day out, getting the mental reps in, we will break the pattern and we can completely transform it to the point where, by consciously practicing the positive self-talk, that just becomes the voice in our head. And remember, it's also important to go and check that belief system and see if there's anything underlying that's giving rise to this negative voice that we can undo and transform, that will just stop it in the first place or make managing and overcoming it so much easier. Now, I just want to say, if using these skills and tools you find your negative self-talk is still persisting or still getting the better of you, then please reach out to someone for help. That's what coaches like myself are for. Find yourself a good coach, trained and experienced in dealing with these things, and they can definitely help you to overcome it. If you've got any questions about anything we've discussed today, then please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram personally at GaryRankin_, or simply ask your coach and they can reach out to me for you. Until next time, go and put these things into practice. By getting those reps in, I promise it will get better and you can overcome it. And until next time, take care, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.